there's no place for a conflicted mind at the edge of a cliff in a wingsuit.
Looking at ski base jumping from the outside, I'm kind of like, what is this? Like, what's the appeal of it?
Well, as skiers, we like to go fast and we like to catch air. And ski base jumping allows you to go way bigger than you ever could with just skis. It also opens up terrain that you couldn't otherwise ski. And a normal base jump, you fall and you jump out, you fall down. Right? You get that elevator shaft fall feeling, kind of the same one if you're at the top of the roller coaster and it's that feeling. Um, but with ski base jumping, you're going out. So it's like getting shot out of a cannon.
Was this something that when you first saw it, you were all about it, or did you kind of have to be convinced into it?
Yes, I was all about it, but I also thought that it was out of reach. I didn't think that, it would be very easy to learn how to skydive, base jump, and, eventually get to the point of ski base jumping. But eventually, actually, quite quickly after my 22nd birthday, I learned that airborne sports are quite easy. Um, Gravity is the most predictable element that you can play with. And so, because of its reliable qualities, any equation that you insert gravity into gets a predictable outcome. In general, airborne sports, after I got a little taste of it, I realized they're a lot easier than I thought. And from when I made my first base jump, which was before learning how to skydive, to when I was ski base jumping was only just over 6 months.
Oh, that fast.
Yeah.
Which one of those is kind of more important? The skiing or the base jumping aspect of it?
Well, the skiing is very important because you're skiing yourself off a cliff. And if you ski off the cliff out of control, or if the jump, the takeoff ramp bucks you out of control, then you're off to a really bad start with your transition into becoming an in control parachutist. That's the thing about ski base jumping is when you ski off that cliff, you've left behind the option of skiing yourself back to safety. You're putting all of your eggs in the basket of transitioning yourself into a parachutist that can land that parachute safely. So yeah, you need to be a damn good skier. And the thing about skiing is like a you don't rotate as a skier. You don't rotate like a ball, right? You rotate like a hatchet
Yeah, yeah, because of the
because
that
the weight of your skis and boots are so much. So it's different. It's different than like a high diver might not do well with a ski base jump because you got all this weight and you rotate like a tomahawk.
is it. So when you're going to do one, like you're going to go do a ski base jump, what kind of factors are you looking at to make sure that A, I can do this safely, and B, this is going to be worth the experience of it? So, like, what are you looking for?
One thing that's really important is the takeoff needs to be predictable. Let's just say that this is your mountain and this is your cliff, right? And you're going to ski off and open your parachute over here. I've seen guys, hit rocks at the takeoff, and then they're crashing out of control, tumbling, and they're only lucky if their parachute opens properly without snagging on their skis and whatnot. So you want a good takeoff. You want a nice cliff. Doesn't have to be a huge cliff because with ski base jumping, you're carrying speed. So a normal cliff, let's say this is your cliff, right? You jump off, you're going to fall down, open your parachute here. With ski base jumping, you're jumping out. So you're gaining all this elevation, right? You're gaining the elevation of the hillside. And you know, mountains kind of call to you. They're they just kind of catch your eye, and you think to yourself, "Ooh, wouldn't it be cool to do that?"
So, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how far towards your limit do you think that you pushed it or have pushed it?
10.
All the way, huh?
Oh yeah, 100%.
What were some of the ones that you'd be like, that was my limit?
I went to the Eiger. I actually did several ski base jumps from the Eiger. The first was with my friend Shane McConkey in 2014, and we had this huge mountain, and it's 6,000, more than 6,000 feet from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain. And Shane and I got dropped off by helicopter about two-thirds of the way up, and we skied several turns, went off of a 1,000-foot cliff section, but we opened our parachutes right away. So if you look at where we took off to where we opened our parachutes, we really only used 800, maybe 1,000 vertical feet of this huge 6,000-foot mountain. And I went back 11 years later with some new skills. I had learned how to speed ride, and also I'd refined the process of disconnecting skis and then flying my body after disconnecting the skis in the middle of the base jump. So I was able to go from the top of the mountain, speed ride down, land, and then disconnect the speed riding parachute at speed, make a bunch of turns, straight line off the same takeoff that Shane and I had done, and then double backflip, release the skis, and then still free fall for another almost 3,000 vertical feet. That was for sure the gnarliest ski base jump that I've ever done.
I guess maybe I'm not someone who's super comfortable with risk. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like if it's something that like, oh, I could potentially not survive this, it'd be really difficult for me to get to do it. Have you always been that way, or is that something that you kind of developed?
I've always been drawn to high stimulus environments. I function really well under pressure, and when stakes are high. It's just it's a good zone for me. My track record's very good when my life is on the line, and I I think I do have a natural tendency towards these things, but I don't want to die either, and I'm a rather motivated individual, so I train really hard to be able to minimize the risk each step of the way in a complex stunt. And I I dissect everything down to the most minuscule detail, and I rehearse good and bad scenarios beforehand. And so I have in my mind already, I have the preliminary plan, an alternate plan, a contingency plan, and then a full on emergency plan. And I've rehearsed them all in my mind. So then when or if something goes wrong, I don't have to think as much. I can just react and go to my next plan.
When things do kind of go wrong in those circumstances, is it usually the thing that you thought would go wrong, or is it something totally unexpected?
That's a very good question, and it's both.
Yeah, I understand what you mean by that.
Usually, I'd say it is not the thing that was keeping you up at night. It's that thing that you kind of took for granted or you're complacent about that sneaks up on you. Um, but there's plenty of times when it's the thing that you really focused on, and then you're very glad that you were prepared. Um, I'd say it's both.
Yeah, right. And I would imagine that sometimes it's the thing that you thought about, but maybe it was worse than you thought it was going to be.
Potentially, yeah. Sometimes your worst fears are um, just a figment of your imagination. You're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. And sometimes your worst fears are spot on.
But this is a sport that people have passed doing, I would imagine.
Sure, yeah. But there's not a lot of people that ski base jump. It's a very unusual combination of sports.
When that happens, like, does that make you step back, or is that just look that's part of it? Everybody understood it. Like, do you step back and reevaluate, or just
Absolutely, yeah. Any incident, good or bad, should be debriefed and really evaluated. What decisions led to this horrible outcome? And by really facing it, and even to the point of evaluating footage, frame by frame, figuring out exactly what went wrong, and then thinking about even that morning or the day before, all the little decisions that led up to that outcome. What you do is be- you become a more experienced, albeit scarred, mountain man or mountain woman, and you move on making decisions with an increased level of experience and wisdom and knowledge. But sure, I lost my best friend. In fact, I've lost two best friends, and I for sure reevaluate. Have introspection and think about, do I want to continue doing this, and at what point is it not fun anymore, and is it worth it? And for me personally, it's not um, it's not something deep, right? I'm not out thinking like, this is how I want to live my life, and I want to prove to someone, and this is how they would have wanted it. No, it's just my own choice in having fun and my risk willingness, um, and that fluctuates. Sometimes you're more risk willing, and sometimes you're less risk willing.
can you have fun doing it, even when the stakes are kind of that high?
Yes, you can have fun doing it when the stakes are high, and you should be having fun doing it when the stakes are high. I think that when you're doing really high risk stuff with your life, you need to be enthusiastic, excited, and optimistic, of course. You got to be in a mindset where you're thinking, there is no better place to be, right? The equivalent of a surfer that goes to a point break and sees perfect glassy barrel waves coming in, and the only people there to surf them are him and his buddies, right? Like, you need to be psyched. Um, and part of that brings a real level of optimism, and like, you're kind of projecting yourself towards success. Um, you can't. I mean, there's no place for a conflicted mind at the edge of a cliff in a wingsuit.
When you go to that high level, and the only thing I can kind of compare it to is like stuff that I know, right? Like when you do the black, so to speak, can you still have fun on the blue and the green?
Yeah, yeah. You still have fun on the blue or the green, but you've tasted um you've tasted something else. So it is there is that kind of addictive quality where you kind of start chasing the next big one, right? And trying to get back to that really intense dopamine hit that you get when you do something that's really hardcore and high speed, and it's fun. It's a wild emotional ride to do, to pioneer something, or to do something that's never been done before, combining your favorite sports, um, high risk, high reward, beautiful scenery, doing things like that. Um, it's a major dopamine rush.
So wait, speed. Not sorry. Ski base jumping. Did that
Right.
come before speed riding?
No, speed riding for me came after. So speed riding is open is flying is excuse me. Speed riding is skiing with an open parachute, right? So you lay the parachute on the ground and start skiing. Boom, it pops up. Now you have an inflated parachute and you can fly down the mountainside or you can ski with the parachute. And it is extremely fun. And it's both more efficient and much safer than ski base jumping. Um, and it is, you're able to do it on a heck of a lot more mountains than your ski base jumping um, because you don't need a cliff, right? You can just do it down mountainsides. But ski base jumping came first, and part of that was watching a James Bond movie where Bond goes off Mount Asgard in Baffin Island and opens his parachute, Yukon Jack parachute, and flies down to the glacier below. And you know, it was we were just drawn to it. And speed riding really wasn't even a thing till about 2008. And we were ski base jumping in 2003.
Are you ready for some harder slash listener submitted questions?
Sure.
For ski base jumping, best place to do it?
Baffin Island, Canada. It's to the west of Greenland, and it's just amazing. Big, sheer granite monoliths coming out of a frozen ocean, and that's the place to do it. Baffin Island.
For speed riding, best place to do it?
France is hard to beat. France is very good, and I would say I'm just gonna go with France.
For both for ski base jumping and speed riding, what do you think is the next evolution?
That's a good question. Um, for speed riding, there was a guy named Antoine Montant, and he was really skiing. He was really focused on the skiing part of speed riding. Um, skiing really extreme lines with the eyes of a skier, by using the parachute to lay down these incredible tracks. And um, the sport didn't evolve that direction. It evolved more towards high performance flying, which I was kind of bummed out about. I would rather if it evolved the um, towards the hardcore skiing. But there are still people doing incredible skiing with their parachutes. Check out Valentin Deluc and Hugo Garola. Ski base jumping, I don't know. There's a young contingent of kids opening up new cliffs. They're doing ski base jumps in new places and they're doing nice skiing into them. But I don't think they're doing much that's different than what Shane and I and others were doing back when I was the most active with that sport. Um, it hasn't fundamentally taken a step forward. I don't know that it will anytime soon, but I look forward to watching it.
Can you see your Instagram?
Yeah.
So this is
Yes, this is speed riding. And, we were just out there. It was actually August, I think, on glaciers.
how big are those crevasses that you're going across?
I don't know. I sure don't want to find out. You do not want to end up in one of those things. Um, it'd be really bad. And yeah, I wiped out pretty good here, as I recall. Yeah.
Oh my. When you fall like that, are you actively trying to stop yourself? Like, can you do anything about it? Or you're just,
I wanted to stop in that case because I didn't want to fall into one of those crevasses.
yeah, yeah.
And I actually broke a tendon in one of my fingers.
Where is this at?
That's ski base jumping in La Clusaz, France, near Annecy, France. And that's my friend Tim, and we're going off a jump we call the cross because there's a cross on top of that little mountain, and pretty
That's
fun.
That's
Yeah,
all the space you need to do it, huh?
yeah, and the chairlift is coming up pretty quick. Looks like my GoPro got
Oh, you got
tilted.
a little sideways on it,
Yeah,
huh?
but see, there's that chairlift to make it over. In case sometimes on that jump, I have had to turn left and not cross over the chairlift. Um, just land on the hillside. And they have actually, I think, since requested that any ski base jumpers don't do it when the chairlift's open.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. Is this legal?
In Europe, there's a much more open mindset to airborne activities, right? The default is yes. So you can speed ride in general at ski resorts, but there's certain rules. You're typically not supposed to um, fly over chairlifts unless you're really high above them, and you're not supposed to land on the piste, the groomed runs. But here in the United States, ski resorts don't welcome it. Sometimes you can go out of the boundaries of the ski resort, so you've used the ski resort for access, but in general, it's a no go, which is a bummer because I hike to do my speed riding here, and I love hiking. It's great. I value being fit and all that, but I might hike two speed riding runs in a day, and that's a good day, right? I hiked 4,000 vertical feet. Good for me. But that's still only two runs. Whereas in France, I can go do 30 runs easily. And they're 2,500-foot runs. Sometimes they're bigger runs. So, you're getting really good at the sport really quickly because of the iterations you're able to do.
You think that is that a potential reason why maybe it's not as popular in the United States as it is in other places?
100%. Yeah. And that's why the Frenchies are the best at it.
That's pretty much all the questions I got, man. What's kind of coming up next for you? Where can people learn more? All that kind of stuff.
Well, we're off to a great start ski season here at Palisades Tahoe, and I'm actually going to go skiing right now with my buddy Slambo.